Can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. So, here we go again. What have you all been up to the last 2 years? It's interesting, like the experience that I just had, that moment for me. I'll try to summarize this. The last 2 months, this last round, we were closed, as you know, and so I've been leading here, whole big meditation hall with nothing but me and a bunch of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas on the walls, and I would make my offering and take refuge, and nobody said anything back, and our millions of YouTube followers, which I know you are some of, I'm sure would at home be, of course, not laying on their couch or in bed or anything like that, but I'm sure up in your upright posture, doing your meditation practice, and doing your, repeating after me, even though I don't hear anything. So that's been the last 2 months. And then, this morning we held a small little retreat with the college group, and really beautiful. I may touch on it, but we did a 5 precept retreat. And the cutest part about it is I asked them to vow to abide by the 5 precepts for 1 week. So I'll report back in a week and let you know how they did. If you don't know what the precepts are, it's to refrain from lying, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, and intoxicants. So we just asked college kids to not do those things for a week. I'm sure they've held to them till now. So I started with them with, doing my offering and reciting the triple gem, and they recited back, and it was, quieter. One, because it was college kids at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, but, smaller group. And then I did it again here, and it was like, I almost felt like, at least this was my interpretation of that moment, was like people felt really happy and good to be doing it again with other people and sitting around other people. Again, especially if you're someone who's been around the community or me for a while, then, it's nice to come back together. And so I kind of went from like this silence to this little gentleness to a little bit louder. And it's almost like there's this like a roar. I read a lot of Chogyam Trungpa, a great Tibetan Buddhist teacher. Didn't always live the healthiest way in his older years, but really wonderful teachings. And he approaches Buddhism in a very, I think, passionate, aggressive way, what he calls groundlessness. And so I feel like there's this kind of excitement that I'm seeing and feeling around people again, partially because everybody's been cooped up and closed for 2 years, partially because we've had tremendous pain and loss and suffering, and probably all of us, directly or indirectly, have people in our lives that are no longer there. That's just a fact. Partially because of the global situation going on right now that has everybody on edge, rightfully so. And fortunately, we don't talk politics in the temple, so I won't touch on that. But I just want to give rise to the fact that there's so many things that we as humans have been battling these last 2 years that are different from things that probably all of us have ever had to face and deal with in our entire lives. And that creates this sense of desire and craving for connection in a healthy way. And that's what Sangha is about. That's what community is about. Those of you who've been around Buddhism, you've heard me talk about, the Buddhist teachings on craving and desire leads to suffering. But he also taught that there are healthy cravings, there are healthy desires. And if it weren't for this desire and craving we had to suffer less, none of us would be here right now. So pay attention. My first master always said, pay attention to that, your intention, your very first intention that leads you to practice. If this is your first time here, or your first time here in a long time, or your first time here in 2 months, always pay attention to what's that intention that you had in you that brought you to a place of knowing that you're craving and desiring something. Explore that intention deeply, because that intention will keep you motivated when you're at your worst. And I think we've all had opportunities these last 2 years to be at our worst, physically, mentally, emotionally, and rightfully so. We've all been going through it. But try to come back to that intention, because that intention is what I think will help you, whether it's here or anywhere, it doesn't matter. But that intention, I think, will help you continue to practice and to take you out of that mindset of isolation that says, it's all me, it's only me, I got to figure this all out. That's why we take refuge in the triple gem: the Buddha, the Dharma, and then the Sangha, the people that you practice with. So for me, it's just, once again, I love sitting in here when it's an empty temple. But as an unenlightened, ignorant fool, I much prefer sitting in here when it's filled with people. So thank you all for being the people that showed up today. So I appreciate you all. So with that, we'll go ahead and sit. And to our massive YouTube following, welcome as well. I know when we return to having classes in person, I tend to seemingly forget about those that made us famous on YouTube. But I'm glad you're here sitting with us, and feel free to chime in and dialogue with each other as much as you'd like. So I'll start with the meditation practice. A few things I'll tell you for those who might be new. Nothing's going to happen to you. You're not going to float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, often helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit upright. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important, do not expect anything, but to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus, to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return attention, focus to the breath. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgments from the practice, just sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's what we get. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. Meditation is not an escape. It's direct perception into the present moment. And very often, as we all are too familiar with, the present moment can be incredibly painful, difficult, challenging, sad. Present moment can also be happy, joyful, pleasant. But our perception of the present moment doesn't change that actual moment. And so this practice is learning to be with things as they are. And I said to somebody when they showed up today, I always talk about how whatever difficulty or challenge you have in your life at any moment in time, once you get through that one, there's always going to be the next one waiting for you. And the practice is not about trying to create this perfect environment around you. It's learning to be with the challenges and obstacles as they arise, because they will always arise. They'll just change. And we don't know what they're going to change to, or who they'll change to. But the one thing that is constant in all of these difficulties and challenges is us. So we work on our response to each moment. And that's a lifelong practice. It's not a quick fix. It doesn't change overnight. If our lives are a hectic, crazy, stressed out mess and we're in panic, stress, anxiety mode all day long, meditation for 20 minutes doesn't fix that. It'll help you for those 20 minutes, but then it's also about recognizing what are we doing in our lives that are creating so much anxiety, stress, chaos? Or what is our response to the life around us that's creating so much stress and anxiety in our own mind and our hearts? And as challenging as it is, once we stop trying to change and fix and control everything around us, wanting everyone to do what we want them to do, wanting everyone to act how we want them to say what we want them to say, to go where we want them to go, there's so much time wanting others to be a certain way. And that's exhausting. So we work on changing our minds and our reactions to what's going on around us. And that doesn't mean you sit and don't do things. And for me, this is the practice which I was speaking a lot about the last couple months, but of Thich Nhat Hanh's practice of engaged Buddhism. Engage in society, engage in community, engage in your work, relationships, everything that's around you, engage in that fully. But engage in it with a heart and mind of kindness and compassion and wisdom, which I know is always so simple to do. So and each day brings a new opportunity to practice. And for me, I think one thing that's been always helpful, but especially over these last couple of years, that if you're sitting here right now, be grateful that you're sitting here, because you're here. And I don't just mean like here at the Dharma Bum Temple. I mean, yay for that. But 2 hours from now, wherever you're sitting, be grateful that you're sitting there. I found the practice of gratitude to be incredibly important when life throws us lots of heavy stuff. So no matter what our challenges and difficulties are, if you stop for a moment, there's always something that you can find to be grateful for. So with that, I'll pause. I always really prefer just to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, challenges, difficulties, anything you're sitting with. And we use the rest of our time this morning for that.
Do you have any suggestions? One of the things she said in that little dialogue was, let nothing disturb you.
Yeah.
And it just happened yesterday to me. I was in the parking lot at Target, and a man walked up to me with a clipboard. He wanted me to sign a thing to get initiative. And I said, no, thank you. And then he started harassing me heavily. And I was witnessing it. I was looking at it. And I'm not gonna let this disturb me. And he wouldn't let up. And he called me a self-esteem, and he went on, I don't know, there wasn't anybody around, I didn't know, I suddenly just completely lost it, and attacked him verbally back, and went in and reported him and everything, but I stayed upset about it for so long, not the incident as much as I let it disturb me.
Yeah.
And I don't know a clue about what to do in those things. Is it come with time, or is it a...
Yeah. So just to repeat back to you briefly, so we're on the same page. You're in a store parking lot, getting into your car. Someone comes up to you, wants you to sign something. You said no, thank you. Started off polite. They then start harassing you, calling you an SOB, I think you said. Then you lost it, and then you went and reported them. And then here you are 24 hours later, and it's still driving you bonkers. I added that part, but
Well, that's why I'm talking.
yeah.
Because it's the residual.
Yeah, right. Like you're suffering right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, why is it still in my brain?
Because you're allowing it to still be in your brain.
Trying not to.
I know. So let's back up to the scene of the crime. You ever yelled at someone? Not counting yesterday when you yelled back at this person, but have you ever yelled at someone?
Yeah.
Have you ever harassed someone?
I don't think so.
Even just in the nature of like you wanted them to do something and they wouldn't do it, and then you kept pushing them.
Maybe, yeah.
Probably. Unless you're the only person in the world that's never like harassed somebody like that. I don't mean harassment the way we tend to look at harassment, but so you've yelled at people, you've harassed them in the manner of wanting them to do something. You got really angry at them. You said nasty things to them, right?
Yeah.
Why? Why did you do it?
I don't know.
Spend some time thinking about that.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to call it the answer, but an approach to look at any time that people do things that trigger us is very often they're just a mirror. And it's an opportunity for us to reflect on, and there's really two levels to this. One, which is, why do we do that to people? Or why did we do that to people? What's really going on there? What are we seeing that we don't like? It can also teach us a lot about ourselves. Now, I'm sure you're at a spiritual place in your life where you will never yell at anyone else again the rest of your life. And you're at a place where you're never going to harass anyone the rest of your life. You're definitely at a place where you're never going to get anyone to try to sign anything the rest of your life. So since you've evolved to that place, I know you're kind of up on the mountain looking down on the little, peasant people over here. But try to look down from, God's view to the little people down here still frustrated and trying to get through their day. And remember when you were like that. Most important about this is, and this is the practice of compassion for others. But what does that actually mean? What that means is to understand that when we do things like that, again, there's no blanket answer. There's no like, this is why we do things. That's why I said, why did you do it? You said, I don't know. And I said, explore it. Right? So I've yelled at lots of people. I've harassed lots of people. I've probably even chased them down for signatures, for lots of stuff. You know why? Because I was suffering. I was angry. I was pissed off. I was hurting. I was attached to my views. I thought I was right. I was doing all those things, and I didn't really care about anybody else. I was suffering tremendously. When we can recognize that and realize that's what's happening, because all we're seeing at that moment is, I just bought groceries or whatever, just stuff from Target. I just want to go. In that moment, we're not stopping and thinking about the suffering of that human. All we're thinking about is the fact that they're bothering me. And so we make it about us. It becomes all about me, my desires, my wants, my cravings. I have a craving, desire, and want to get in my car and drive away and have everybody leave me alone. I get it. That's your craving. That's your desire. That's your want. It's not the end of the world. It's not a bad thing. Right? We often look at craving and desire, which the Buddha said is the root cause of our suffering, and we tend to twist those around to be these things that are like evil or bad. The craving and desire. No, it's not about it, the craving and desire being bad. It's recognizing you had a craving and you had a desire. Your desire was to be left alone and to leave. Nothing wrong with that. But because you had that desire, you were not open at all to the possibility that somebody else might have their own desire. Nor were you open to the possibility that their suffering is extreme. We don't know. I don't know. Maybe they just lost a loved one yesterday. Maybe their family member just, is ill. We don't know. So the practice of compassion is to recognize that every human being is suffering, just like you are. And if you can instantly see this, it doesn't change the event necessarily, although it actually will slightly, because you would have not escalated it as much as you would have if the immediate response was to yourself. You're probably not going to pat the stranger on the back and say, "Oh, you poor human, you're suffering so much. Here, let's sit and have a chat." You might see what happens, but you're not trying to pity them in that moment. Compassion and pity are two different things. Compassion is understanding their suffering. That's why they're doing what they're doing. Right? When you paint that picture of this person just trying to they get paid like, I don't know what it is now, but people used to get paid like $8 per signature. Maybe they have a family they're trying to feed. Maybe they're homeless. Maybe they don't have a meal. They don't have money for dinner. They're just trying to get their life situated. And in that moment, we don't see that. So we escalate it to, now I'm annoyed. Now I'm yelling back. Now I'm complaining to the manager. Now I can't wait to go to meditation tomorrow because I need to ask, how do I not get so pissed off? So for 24 hours, you've carried this with you, right? The answer for you, I believe, is in exploring, why did you do that to people? And when we can understand that, then we can stop and have, I think, an appreciation, for lack of better words, of appreciation might be a weird word in that situation, but it makes sense for me, where I can appreciate other people who are doing things that are not so great. Because I've been there. And then it doesn't escalate. Just some thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
Kind of on that point, when you don't escalate, sometimes it causes you to hold that in, that anger, and that causes more suffering internally.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stop that from?
Yeah, it's a great question. Very valid. All questions are valid, but very true. Your question is, when you don't express that and express that back, then you hold it in internally, and then you suffer more. Right? That's your question. The answer is the same. The question is not about the practice, I should say, is not about holding it in or letting it out. if you recognize in that moment that they're suffering, there's nothing to hold in or let out. What I take from your question is that you see what they're doing and it pisses you off and you don't like it, but you're going to practice silence in that moment. And you're going to internalize it and it's going to destroy you. Where your alternative would be to yell at them and then you feel better. You know who this is all about at this moment? It comes back to you. So it's recognizing their suffering, period. Then there's nothing to internalize. Here's the crazy thing. You are taking somebody else's suffering and now you're suffering. They don't even know. This person doesn't even know you. I'll tell you what, they're not sitting in their meditation class right now talking about the lady who, they're not thinking about you right now. I can probably guarantee that. Unless you got them fired.
No.
Right?
They
So,
sent him over to Ralph.
okay, right? But you get my point, right? Like they're over it. But in that moment, they're suffering. We're just going about our day. We got our own stuff to deal with. We got to, get our groceries home and unpack and whatever. And all of a sudden now we've taken their whole mess of a life. That's not their whole suffering in that moment. Their whole life. We've now dropped onto us. We're like, okay, well now I'm going to feel completely miserable because these people are doing the best they can. They're doing the best they can. But we now own that? Do you understand the difference? Yeah. I also want to just kind of add as like a little asterisk, like I understand from a, looking at this like kind of psychological aspect of it, the healthy expression that's important as far as, when people dealing with therapy, things like that, like to express it, to, verbalize it, to get it out, to write it, to talk it, whatever, like expression of those things are very beneficial and healthy. So I'm not suggesting that we get into this avoidance mechanism, but the practice is in that moment to recognize their suffering. Therefore, we don't own it. And then we don't have the choice. We don't have to make a choice of whether we internalize it or express it. So it's like one step before that part. If it gets to the point where you're like, okay, it's in, right? I'm already miserable. Now I have a choice to internalize it and suffer or verbalize it, then express it. But express it in a way that maybe doesn't throw it back at them. Journal about it, write about it, call a friend about it, because I'm sure they're happy to listen to you complain about your stuff for 20 minutes. Right? So get it out if you need to get it out, but try not to throw it back at them. Which is fascinating because in situations like that, two people, all of a sudden, this person dropped something on us and we're upset that they brought their madness onto us. Now, all of a sudden, we're like, okay, well, now it's an even playing field. So since they dropped their madness onto me, I can now drop my madness back onto them. So without even recognizing it, you are now no different than they are. We have become them. Oh, but they started it. And then we're 8, So it's tough. The good thing is people are going to bother you every day, all day, the rest of your life. So you have lots of opportunities to practice. That's the good news. Yeah.
Kind of on the same thread, I'm noticing that when things, it's more not people that are strangers, people close to me, when I feel that I'm not being seen or heard, or they're not doing the things that I want them to do in the way that I want them to do it, I find that one of the ways that I'm handling it is detaching.
Yeah.
And then I realize I'm in this nowhere land because I'm just detached from the relationship, because I feel like that's one of this self-preservation mechanism that just used to be the rage and the yell, and now I'm kind of in this more detached state, but it's still very,
Right.
It's lonely out there and detached though.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's and that's where it's, often these things are, I shouldn't say easier with strangers, because it's not easy, right? We're all triggered by those things. But when I say easier, I mean it's not something that we carry with us as long. You'll process this over a couple days, and then you'll be done with it, hopefully. But when it's people that we know and love and are intimately tied to or connected to in various ways, and we have done what we need to do. I think at this point I'm really just re-saying what you're saying, but I just want to get on the same page here. When we have done what we needed to do to keep our own sanity and health, we've distanced ourselves, but we're still not getting what we want, and then we're just stuck. And there's fear, loneliness, sadness, on top of the craving and desire we have to actually just be appreciated and cared for. And we're not getting any of that. But there we are. And we're afraid to go that way because that doesn't give us what we want. And we're afraid to go that way because that way's unknown, and that's scary as hell. Very often, I've seen this for too many years, people stay so miserable because it's just what they've adjusted to. And there's nothing in the Buddhist practice that I've ever looked at that said, stay miserable. But it requires fearlessness to remove ourselves from unhealthy, potentially toxic relationships, situations. This is the most common question that comes up around this place. It's always, layered differently or expressed differently. But I shouldn't say we're all, but many people are here because we're struggling with a dynamic somewhere in our lives. And very often that dynamic is a person. And as you so eloquently described at the beginning, and I sensed a bit of, you even using the words I've always talked about, is that yes, we are craving and desiring them to be a certain way, and they're not. So we have choices to make. Is that the situation that we want to stay in year after year after year, or not? That's a scary place. But there's a line in the Dhammapada, a great Buddhist text, and it says, better to walk alone than with a fool for company. The first line of that text is, mind is the forerunner of all evil. And then within it, it's that if you're not familiar with Dhammapada, it's a great, it's all online. You can get it online. All kind of stanzas, written the way it's written out, and really beautiful. But better to walk alone than with the fool for company. And one of the actually college kids mentioned this morning, that they were expressing how they constantly have this craving to be this social person and around people because they're afraid to just be by themselves. And it's a lot like meditation practice, in a sense that if 20 minutes of silent meditation is torture, that means you just can't sit with your own thoughts. And if you're afraid of being by yourself, that's something to explore also, that maybe work on that love, appreciation, compassion, kindness for yourself, and learn to be just you without that need for somebody to fill some illusion of a void that we think is there. Yeah, none of these things have answers, just different ways to explore the beautiful challenges we have in our lives. The one unfortunate thing is that we have a hard enough time controlling what we say and do. We cannot control what others choose to say and do, or how they act and how they respond. But our responses to them do factor in. Meaning that once we remove ourselves from the situation, at least physically or emotionally or mentally, then that doesn't help smooth things over. The distance it's known, it's felt, it's there. So, yeah. Other thoughts, questions? Yeah.
I always talk about my fight or flight behavior, and it happens quickly. And, it wouldn't be something that I would stop and no, sometimes it's just instant.
Yes.
And my body just gets bogged down in that adrenaline or need to run away or fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so built into my body. I just want to throw that out.
Yeah.
It's a chemical reaction, especially when you're under attack.
Yes.
And that's for survival.
Mm-hmm. No, it's funny you said it because actually twice already in both comment situations the term fight or flight was in my head. I just didn't say it. But and that's where I think that the practice of finding balance, or specifically within Buddhist teachings, the middle path is, and I've been most of my life a huge fight or flight person. And I've found in most cases, neither one of those was really the best option. But it was almost out of necessity that I had to either fight or flight. And looking back on experiences, and then for me as trying to practice this, continuing to go forward, when I find myself in situations that are a fight or flight, and that's that initial, like you said, that chemical reaction, like boom, I'm either going to punch you, I'm going to walk away. To me, that's where that meditation practice, as you know, is so critical, because it allows you a little bit of a gap, a little bit of a time, a little bit of a moment, whether it's 3 breaths or whatever it is, to say, okay, option A, fight. Option B, flight. Take a few deep breaths. Maybe there's 17 other options that I'm not even exploring because that instant trigger. And when we've conditioned that trigger and used it and done it for so long, it's almost like we forget that there are other options. And we don't even know what those options are. But if we don't give ourselves a chance to explore the other options, then we're always either kicking and screaming or we're running. And it's what so many of us build up most of our lives, is those 2 reactions.
And our body even gives us a chemical to assist with that.
Definitely, yeah. We feel it. It's there. Yeah, the adrenaline, everything. Right, the endorphins are going. The adrenaline is going. If it's chemical dependent, whatever it might be, that's all. It's all there. And then our foolish little selves are supposed to cut through all of that and be like, just breathe. It's hard. Yeah. Any final thoughts or questions? Yeah.
I know that you're all going to start having a Zen Buddhism on Monday.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So as we reopen, right? Whatever that even means for the moment, we always are looking at what schedule is going to look like with staying open, in person, virtual, both, RSVP, no RSVP, all that kind of stuff. And so setting all that aside, specifically, Ken has led our Zen practice for probably 10 years, on and off at different times. And he's also, when we used to do the Dharma Bum Life program, Ken and I would lead that together, and Travis. And so he's been in an off period for the last 2+ years of doing that group. And so we'll start it again Monday nights. It'll start this coming Monday. So today's Saturday. So 2 days, Monday night at 7. It will be an in-person. It will not be virtual. It'll be just in person. And Ken is just Ken. Ken has been at this practice, probably 50 years. And he has a lot of knowledge, and will never answer any one of your questions. You're asking me to describe something from someone that I've known for a very long time, and I know how he leads. And so I'm trying to answer it in a way that, by not answering it. Yeah, so show up Monday nights at 7. It'll be great. It's the Zen practice specifically, it's a silent meditation. He'll share some thoughts and teachings, maybe from a text or something, or just from his life experience around the Zen practice, and then open up for discussion. So very similar to, the kind of the typical setup here, a meditation, a little talk, some questions, things like that. And that'll be every Monday at 7 to 8. Yeah. So the Zen practice, and for me, that's my background, is really it's just a mirror. It's all Buddhist practice, but yeah. So Ken's great. Did I answer your question?
No, and thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Perfect. Ken will love that. All right, so we'll join palms as we close. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained be transferred to the nearly 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to all of those in Ukraine who suffer at this time, and around the world who are suffering at this time. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. So just a few announcements. Again, thanks for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. So every night we have different practices, different people leading from different traditions. As we reopen now again, the schedule will be similar to what it was. We were closed for 16 months. We opened for 6. We closed for 2. And now we're open again. So our schedule for now is going to settle into where it was just prior to our last closure. Ken will do the class. That's new since we closed. But Ken will do Monday night here. I'll do the Tuesday night class here. Alex will do the Wednesday night class here with the loving kindness. Travis will do the Dharma Bum Basics on Thursday nights here. And then again, I'll do Saturday. Our recovery Sangha, that will be Tuesday nights downstairs. The Tuesday night recovery Sangha will require an RSVP because it's a smaller space and we would pack that full, as does the Saturday still for now. We're going to keep the RSVP here on Saturday so we don't have 80 people here. The Sunday morning recovery Sangha will start tomorrow in person. That will not require an RSVP. So just Sunday morning, just show up. Monday through Friday also now we'll start again with our morning sits here. So 8 and 8:30, if you want to come sit, it's 2 25-minute sits, or you can stay for the whole hour, either way. But it starts at, first sit is at 8, the second one's at 8:30. And that's a silent, it's not a class, there's no talk or anything. It's just, if you want to just come sit in silence for 25 minutes, then you're welcome to do that. The Homeless Hats Project, that will continue once a month now, meeting here on Sundays, and the other 3 weeks will be virtual. That's been a wonderful program. They're making beanies and probably made 500-600 beanies over the last 6-8 months and passing them out to people on the streets. And then our Thursday night recovery sangha, that will also stay virtual only for right now. That's the Thursday night book study. That recovery group will stay virtual for right now. So the website should be fully updated by the end of today, but just kind of keep checking there. Last thing I'll say is we are still, for right now, during the week, the temple will open for morning practice, and then we'll close during the day, and then open up again in the evening. Saturday, Sunday, the temple will be open like right now from 12 to 3. So for people that want to, just sit in the afternoon or anything like that on the weekends, you're welcome to. Buddha for You also will open again. So it's open now. Maggie's down there if you want to say hi. We all miss you. That'll open Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 3. And that'll also be open during the week. So other than that, let's just hope we can be open. So we appreciate you. We're still going to follow masks required. We're still going to try to, socially distance seat you. And that's really so the people who do come here are comfortable coming here. Because I promise you, as soon as we took the masks and the seating away, a lot of people who come here would not come here. So yeah.
Is there any talk about the food redistribution during that process?
No,
Yeah.
not yet. Yeah, so good question. The food redistribution is still, that will probably be, I don't know when, but that'll be the last thing that starts up, just for a lot of reasons. It's a small space down there. It's a ton of people in a little room. You're handling food, passing it out to a population that is not the safest population to go into. So for all the reasons that you can imagine, we're not rushing to bring back the food redistribution program, because that puts tremendous risk. Again, I know you know this, but I'm just sharing it for everybody. It puts tremendous risk on the people that are coming here, and we are then having those people then filter back into everything else here. So we have to continue to do what we feel is the safest for the people that show up here. Yeah. So give it time, it'll come back, but yeah, it'll be last. Yeah, unfortunately. So, all right. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Good to see you again. Be well.